47 restaurant owners sat in the glass-walled conference room of the Devlin Hospitality Group, every one of them dressed in pressed suits and carrying leather portfolios. Then the door opened and Mason Cole walked in. Faded denim jacket, work boots with dried flour on the laces. Behind him, a 6-year-old girl clutching a gray stuffed elephant named Pepper. The laughter started immediately. Someone near the back said it looked like a father-daughter pancake breakfast had wandered into the wrong building. 30 seconds later, Olivia Devlin, the 31-year-old CEO who'd just inherited her father's empire, told Mason his little diner idea wouldn't last a week in this market. 6 months after that, she was standing outside his restaurant at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, begging for a reservation she'd been told wouldn't be available for 8 weeks. Stay with this one. What happened in those 6 months rewrote everything the Devlin Group thought it knew about the restaurant business. The humiliation happened in front of everyone. Mason stood near the back wall while Olivia Devlin worked her way down the row of applicants, shaking hands, nodding, taking notes on her tablet. She wore a charcoal suit. Her assistant, a woman named Grace Chen, who'd worked for Olivia's father for 16 years, stood 2 steps behind her with a second tablet. When Olivia reached Mason, she stopped. She looked at the flour on his boots. She looked at his daughter, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor with Pepper balanced on her knees, drawing something on the back of a napkin. Olivia did not smile. "Mr. Cole," she said. "Yes. This is a pitch meeting for the Devlin Incubator Program. We're selecting 3 restaurant concepts to fund and mentor." "You're aware of that?" "I am." "Then can I ask why you brought your daughter?" Mason looked at her. He did not explain. He did not apologize. He said, "Childcare fell through." Someone in the second row laughed. Olivia did not laugh. She tapped her screen twice. "Your application says you want to open a neighborhood diner. Breakfast and lunch only. No alcohol. No dinner service." "That's right." "Mr. Cole, we're looking for concepts that scale. Fine dining, multi-location potential, brands we can franchise." She paused. "A diner that closes at 2 in the afternoon doesn't fit that profile." Mason nodded. He did not argue. Olivia continued. "You've listed your experience as line cook, prep work, and 6 months managing a breakfast cart. No formal culinary training. No business degree. No previous ownership." Grace glanced up from her tablet. She did not say anything. She looked at Mason's hands. They were calloused in a particular way. Not kitchen burns. Something older. Olivia closed the application on her screen. "I'm going to save us both some time. This program is about building the next generation of serious restaurant groups. I don't think a single location diner with a dad cooking pancakes is what we're after." She looked at his daughter. "I'm sure it's a nice idea, but it won't last a week in this market. Not with the rent. Not with the competition." Mason picked up his jacket. He buttoned it slowly. He took his daughter's hand. She stood up, still holding Pepper. As they walked toward the door, Olivia said one more thing. "Mr. Cole, I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to be realistic. You seem like a good father. Maybe focus on that instead of a business you're not equipped to run." Mason did not look back. He opened the door. His daughter walked through first. He followed her out. The apartment they lived in was 11 blocks south of the Devlin building. 2 bedrooms. The kitchen window looked out at a brick wall. Mason made scrambled eggs that night while his daughter sat at the table, coloring. Pepper sat next to her plate. She was drawing the same thing she always drew, a restaurant with her name on the sign. Across the top, in careful letters, she'd written Emma's Place. "Dad," she said. "Yeah? Are we still opening the restaurant?" Mason cracked the last egg into the pan. He did not answer right away. He thought about the money he'd saved, $18,000. 3 years of double shifts and no vacations. He thought about the space he'd found on Renner Avenue, the one with the broken oven and the lease the landlord said he'd hold for 2 more weeks. He thought about his wife. She had died 2 years earlier. Car accident, black ice on the interstate. She used to say Mason made the best pancakes she'd ever tasted and that someday people would line up for them. "We're opening it," Mason said. Emma smiled. She went back to her drawing. She added windows. She added a door. She drew Pepper sitting in one of the booths. Mason spent the next 4 weeks gutting the space on Renner Avenue. He worked alone. He tore out the old counters, sanded the floors, repainted the walls himself. The oven was fixable. He found a used griddle on Craigslist for $200. He built the booths by hand using reclaimed wood from a demolition site. Grace Chen walked past the restaurant one morning on her way to a site inspection for another Devlin project. She saw Mason through the window on his knees installing baseboards. She stopped. She watched him work for a full minute. Then she kept walking. The restaurant opened on a Tuesday. No press, no social media campaign, just a handwritten sign in the window that said, "Open, breakfast and lunch." Emma sat at the counter with Pepper doing her homework. Mason worked the griddle. The first customer was an older man named Mr. Alvarez who lived 2 blocks over. He ordered coffee and the special, which was buttermilk pancakes with maple butter. When the plate arrived, he looked at it for a long time. He did not speak. He cut into the stack. He took 1 bite. Then he took another. When he finished, he paid, left a $10 tip on a $9 check and said he'd be back tomorrow. The second week, 17 people came. The third week, 41. By the 5th week, there was a line out the door at 8 Sound. Mason did not advertise. He did not hire servers. Emma helped bus tables after school. She carried Pepper with her. Customers started asking for the elephant's table, which was the corner booth where Emma did her homework. What Mason did not tell anyone was that he'd worked in restaurants before. Not as a line cook. He'd owned 3 of them. 2 in Portland, 1 in Seattle. He'd sold them 7 years earlier for a combined total of $4. $7 million. He'd walked away from the industry entirely after his wife died. The breakfast cart was how he stayed close to the work without the pressure. The application he'd submitted to the Devlin Group had been accurate. He just hadn't listed everything. At the end of month 2, a food blogger named Jeremy Tan posted a review. He called Mason's Pancakes the best breakfast in the city, and it's not close. The post went viral locally. The line doubled. Mason started opening at 6:30 to keep up. He still worked alone. Emma still sat at the counter with Pepper, now greeting regulars by name. Olivia Devlin did not see the review. She was busy with the 3 concepts she'd selected from the incubator program. One was a high-end sushi bar. One was a craft cocktail lounge. One was a farm-to-table tasting menu restaurant. All 3 were bleeding money. The sushi bar couldn't get consistent fish suppliers. The cocktail lounge had permit issues. The tasting menu place had already churned through 2 head chefs. Grace Chen mentioned it in a weekly meeting. She said quietly that the diner on Renner Avenue was doing better than all 3 combined. Olivia did not ask follow-up questions. Month 4, the James Beard Foundation's local chapter added Mason's restaurant to their under-the-radar list. A food critic from the Tribune came in unannounced. She ordered the special. When the plate arrived, she set down her fork and stared, not because it looked impressive, because it looked simple. Perfect. She took a bite. She closed her eyes. She wrote a review that ran the following Sunday with the headline, "The Best Pancakes You've Never Heard of." Grace Chen read the review over coffee. She looked up the address. It was the same space she'd walked past months earlier. She pulled Mason's original application from the archived files. She read it again. Then she read the reviewer's description of the food. It used words like architectural and impossibly tender and the kind of cooking that doesn't announce itself. She printed the article. She put it in a folder. She did not show it to Olivia yet. Month 5, the restaurant was fully booked 6 weeks out. Mason hired 1 person, a dishwasher named Luis who worked quietly and never asked questions. Emma turned 7. She brought Pepper to the restaurant every day after school. She'd started taking orders from regulars, writing them down in a notebook with a purple pen. She knew who wanted coffee first and who wanted orange juice. She knew Mr. Alvarez wanted his pancakes with the butter on the side. She knew Mrs. Brennan always ordered 2 eggs over easy, even though she only ate 1. Olivia Devlin's 3 incubator projects were failing. The sushi bar closed in week 18. The cocktail lounge was being sued by a former partner. The tasting menu restaurant was hemorrhaging $60,000 a month. The Devlin Group's board asked for a meeting. Olivia's father had built the company over 40 years. She'd been running it for 14 months. The board was not impressed. At 6:15 on a Thursday evening, Olivia sat in her office and searched for something, anything, that was working in the local restaurant scene. She found the Tribune article. She found Jeremy Tan's blog post. She found a YouTube video of someone's birthday breakfast at a small diner on Renner Avenue. In the background of the video, a little girl with a stuffed elephant was refilling coffee cups. Olivia paused the video. She looked at the girl's face. She looked at the man working the griddle in the background. She did not recognize him at first. Then she did. She opened the original incubator applications. She scrolled to Mason Cole. She read his name 3 times. She looked at the date he'd been rejected. She looked at the date the restaurant opened. She closed her laptop. She did not move for 4 full minutes. Grace knocked. She came in without waiting for an answer. She set the folder on Olivia's desk. "You should read this," Grace said. Olivia opened it. Inside was the Tribune review, the blog post, and a printed revenue estimate Grace had pulled from public permit filings. The diner was on track to gross $1, $2 million in its first year. Off breakfast and lunch. No alcohol, no dinner. Olivia looked up. "He's the one I told to quit," she said. Grace nodded. "He didn't. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "You didn't ask." Olivia stood. She walked to the window. She looked out at the city. She thought about the 47 people in that conference room. She thought about the 3 projects she'd greenlit instead. She thought about Mason's daughter, sitting on the floor with the stuffed elephant, and the way Mason had buttoned his jacket without saying a word. "I need a reservation," Olivia said. Grace shook her head. "They're booked out 8 weeks. Then get me on the list." "I tried." "They don't take names. It's walk-in only for parties under 4, and the line starts forming at 6 while away." Olivia turned. "I'm not standing in line at 6 in the morning." Grace picked up the folder. She walked to the door. Before she left, she said, "Then I guess you won't eat there." Olivia waited 2 days. On Tuesday night at 11:47, she drove to Renner Avenue. The lights inside the restaurant were still on. Mason was wiping down the griddle. Emma was asleep in the corner booth, Pepper tucked under her arm. Olivia knocked on the glass door. Mason looked up. He did not move. She knocked again. He set down the towel. He walked to the door. He did not unlock it. He stood on the other side of the glass. "We're closed," he said. "I know. I wanted to talk." "About what?" Olivia hesitated. She had rehearsed this. She had written down what she was going to say. Now, standing in front of him, none of it sounded right. "I was wrong," she said. Mason did not respond. "6 months ago, I told you this wouldn't last a week. I was wrong. I'm here to apologize." Mason looked past her at the street. Then he looked back. Apology noted. "I'd also like a reservation." "We don't take reservations." "I know. Grace told me. I thought maybe no exceptions." Olivia nodded. She stepped back. She turned to leave. Then she stopped. "Can I ask you something?" Mason waited. "Why didn't you tell me you'd done this before? You left half your resume off the application." "You didn't ask. I asked about your experience. You asked about formal training and ownership. I gave you what you asked for." Olivia looked at him. "You wanted me to reject you." Mason did not confirm or deny. He said, "I wanted to see if you were the kind of person who listens or the kind who decides before the meeting starts. And you decided before I walked in." Olivia felt something tighten in her chest. It was not anger. It was something closer to shame. She looked through the window at Emma, still asleep, and at the kitchen behind her, clean, small, and completely full every single day. "What can I do?" Olivia asked. "About what?" "To make this right." Mason unlocked the door. He opened it halfway. "You can stop trying to fix things you didn't break. I don't need your help. I don't need your program. I needed you to listen 6 months ago. You didn't. That's fine." I moved on.
"I'm sorry."
"I know." Emma stirred in the booth. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. She saw Olivia standing in the doorway. She picked up Pepper. She walked over to her father. "Dad," she said, "who's that?" Mason looked down at his daughter. "Someone who's leaving." Emma looked at Olivia. She did not look away. She said very clearly, "You're the one who said we'd fail." Olivia's throat closed. She tried to speak. She couldn't. Emma kept looking at her. The girl's eyes were not angry. They were simply factual. Olivia knelt. She lowered herself until she was at Emma's height. "I was wrong," Olivia said. "I didn't understand. I'm sorry." Emma tilted her head. She looked at Pepper. Then she looked back at Olivia. "Pepper says you should come for breakfast. Not because you're important. Because everyone should try my dad's pancakes." Olivia's eyes stung. She nodded. "What time?" 6:30. "The line starts at 6. Mason put his hand on Emma's shoulder. "Time for bed," he said. Emma nodded. She walked back to the booth to grab her backpack. Mason looked at Olivia one more time. "If you come, you wait in line like everyone else." "I will." He closed the door. He locked it. Olivia stood on the sidewalk for a long time. Then she walked back to her car. She showed up the next morning at 6:10. There were already 32 people in line. She stood at the back. She did not check her phone. She did not leave. At 6:30, the door opened. Emma was the one who unlocked it. She saw Olivia. She smiled. It was a small smile. Not forgiveness. Not quite. But something. Mason worked the griddle. Olivia sat at the counter. When the plate arrived, she looked at it the same way Mr. Alvarez had on day 1. She cut into the stack. She took a bite. She understood. She came back the next week, and the week after that. By month 7, she'd been 17 times. She never asked for special treatment. She never mentioned the Devlin group. On her 9th visit, Mason set a cup of coffee in front of her without asking. On her 14th, Emma brought Pepper over and let Olivia hold her while she finished her homework. The Devlin board asked Olivia what her turnaround plan was. She told them she was working on it. What she did not tell them was that she'd started eating breakfast at a diner where a man who'd been humiliated in her conference room was teaching her what hospitality actually meant. 3 months later, Mason opened a second location. He did not ask for Devlin funding. He did not need it. Olivia heard about it from Grace. She showed up on opening day. She waited in line. When she reached the counter, Emma was there, holding Pepper. "We saved you a seat," Emma said. Mason looked over from the griddle. He did not smile, but he nodded. Olivia sat down. She ordered the special. The restaurant was full. Outside, the line stretched around the block. Emma refilled coffee. Pepper sat on the counter. Mason flipped pancakes with the same quiet precision he'd had since day one. Olivia watched him work. She thought about the question she'd asked 6 months earlier. What can I do to make this right? She'd finally figured out the answer. Nothing. She couldn't fix it. She could only show up. Keep showing up. Wait in line. Eat the pancakes. Let the work speak. Mason set the plate in front of her. He met her eyes for half a second. Then he turned back to the griddle. Emma leaned over the counter. "He's making your pancakes different now," she whispered. "Different how?" "He puts extra butter in yours. Just a little. He thinks you don't notice." Olivia looked at the plate. She looked at Mason's back. She picked up her fork. She did not say anything. She took a bite. She closed her eyes.